Have you ever been bored of your training and thought that you should try something different, maybe something sexier? Believe me, I've been there. But the most dangerous fighters that I've trained didn't chase variety. They just kept mastering the basics. Welcome to the Black Lion Blueprint, the podcast that breaks through the noise and helps fighters train smart, recover better, and show up strong, both physically and mentally. I'm Coach Frederick, and today we're talking about something that separates real progress from just spinning your wheels: simplicity over sexy. Training doesn't need to look cool to work, and the sexier it looks, the less likely it's doing what you actually need. Simplicity gives you space to focus, to master movement, to stack wins. Most of what you see online, it's not performance, it's content. Or it is a performance. As always, if you're watching this, I'll be looking at my notes to stay on track. And if you're listening to this, if you hear some long pauses, it's because I'm gathering my thoughts here. But as always, I don't want to ramble, but I may ramble, and that's okay because we still get a lot of good information out of it. Let's dive right into the main topics here. So the common problems that I see is performing exercises that look impressive but don't serve a real goal. So a lot of the exercises that we usually see online, and this specifically comes from this online space right now, if anybody that really trained athletes in person would know, or you would see somebody training athletes in person, you would know that it's not the most sexy thing that's going on in the gym. A lot of times it looks very basic. But nowadays you got people, they want to get exposure. And I get it. So they just jump to doing crazy exercises. But that does not benefit you as the fighter. It doesn't benefit you because they're just doing exercises that look cool. And you're just like, and they say, oh, it builds explosive power, or this is fight-specific performance increases or enhancement in whatever area. And then you look at the exercise and like, okay, cool, I'm going to try that. But here's the kicker. If you can't perform the exercise effectively, if it takes you, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes in your workout to figure out how to perform this exercise, it probably isn't the best exercise for you because it's wasting your time, first and foremost, valuable time that you don't even have to waste. You're not getting the most out of the exercise because you're not performing it effectively. And if you had a more effective exercise, or a more simplistic exercise that you could perform effectively, then you would save time and be able to get the most out of that movement in general as well. So that's one of my biggest pet peeves is people, promoting these complex exercises just because they look cool or they think they're so sport specific. And I won't go too deep into sports specificity, but just know that it's not as much as your sport. Your sport is what is sport specific. Perform your sport and do basic movement patterns. That's sport specific enough. And then the joint angles that we change up as we get closer to, let's just say, competition or whatnot, is what makes it more sport specific. But let's keep it on track. Power development as well. So exercises that look impressive oftentimes don't develop as much power as they could if you were doing just a basic movement. So if you're standing on like one leg and you're balancing a weight overhead, let's just say a dumbbell in one hand, and then in the other hand you have some type of input, you get what I'm saying. You're doing all these complex things. There's a lot of moving parts in there. You're not developing power because you have to stabilize. The more unstable your body is, the less force is going to be able to generate, thus the less power is going to be able to output as well. So keep in mind, the more complexity you see in a movement, think about there's going to be less power output and less force output. So it's going to be giving you a less of a training effect if you're looking to accomplish those things. So these are key things to watch out for if you come across these exercises online. The next thing is skipping over fundamentals in favor of what's trending. Now, this does tie into, seeing an exercise online, but as well as if there's one thing that's trending right now is like fascia training or whatnot. And the funny thing is you can't really isolate that, but you can train it in a sense, just your normal movement patterns, moving faster, rotational movements. Those things train that fascia as well because it's all interconnected into your body. That's the crazy thing. It's like, oh, well, what's this cool new thing? Again, it's someone who just decided that they want to hone in and focus in on that one thing. And it's just to, get them notoriety, so to speak, for the most part. I don't know their intentions behind it, but usually if somebody's just trying to hyper focus on one thing, it's because they don't know that it's more integrated than what they're trying to make it. It's not just one specific thing that's going to give somebody 110% more results than just doing the basic movement patterns, man. And it's funny because it's like, it's not the basic movement patterns. So bending, squatting, doing single leg hip dominant movements, single leg knee dominant movements, core isolation work, pressing, pulling, all those things, they're not sexy. And it doesn't get you a lot of views because you're just like, everybody knows this stuff. But the basics went out all the time because that's what got people to the places that they are in the past, in the present, and it will continue to get people to where they are as far as high performance in the future. So the next thing is believing more variety equals more results. So this is a huge mistake here. So believing that more variety equals more results. So you think that, okay, I feel like I hit a plateau here, or oftentimes I see this come up whenever, I have a fighter that goes into a fight and they just feel off for some apparent reason. Or a lot of times it could come from their training as well. They could just be like, I feel a little gassed today, or, that movement didn't feel as good as I thought it should have felt. So maybe I need to do more of this. Or I didn't feel as powerful throwing my punches or my kicks. Maybe I need to do this thing, change up and do some more variety or whatnot. But here's the thing, there's way more that goes into it than that. So if you think you need to change up because you're feeling gassed, just understand that recovery is one of the major parts of people feeling gassed. If you think that it's because of power, movement efficiency, being less mobile can reduce your power output. So it may not be the variety that you actually need. And then also variety. So variety, if you do too much variety, you're not allowing your body to build up its tolerance to that specific movement. So therefore, you could be putting more stress on your joints and on your muscles, therefore reducing your ability to recover from that stress that you're putting on it from week to week. And then also get the most out of that exercise. So let's just say if I'm performing let's just say reverse lunge, let's say a dumbbell reverse lunge, I'm performing that movement. And then I'm like, oh, well, I want to do some lateral movements too. So next week, I'm going to do a dumbbell side lunge. And then the next week, I'm going to do a dumbbell side lunge to knee lift. And so much variety doesn't allow your body to adapt and understand how to perform in that movement effectively in order to get the most out of that exercise. So first and foremost, always think about this when you're going into, do I need more variety? What am I trying to accomplish? Is it muscle endurance? Is it just more mobility with this movement? Is it strength? Is it power? Am I able to perform this movement effectively? Am I shaking when I'm doing it? Okay, then you need to stick with that movement for a while in order to get the most out of it. Because if you're shaking, you're unstable, you're not able to produce much force out of it. So you're not going to be able to build more strength with that movement. If you're trying to produce power out of that movement, again, if you're shaking during that reverse lunge, you're not going to be able to get the most power development out of that movement. So whenever it comes to thinking about movement variety, you want to think about the more variety. Sometimes it can make your joints more irritated. It can make your muscles more irritated because you're switching things up too often and your body doesn't get to adapt to it. Your tolerance level. If you allow your body to build up a tolerance level to that specific movement pattern, then you'll be able to get the most out of it. Just understand when it comes to doing a specific movement over a long period of time, all we're trying to do is build the body's tolerance level to that stress demand. So that way you can have the capacity to perform your sport as well as you possibly can. So variety is not always better. Now, I do use some variety, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But as a coach, what I do with my fighters, we repeat a lot of the same movement patterns. So for instance, the trap bar deadlift is one of my main exercises that I perform inside of our training programs. One is very easy on the system, comparatively speaking to like back squats. So I use it as one of my primary leg strength and power, muscle endurance movements inside of the programs that I design. And for the first 4 weeks, we may do trap bar deadlifts for 8 repetitions, really pushing the weight for those 4 weeks and increasing the weight over the weeks. The next 4 weeks, we may do the same trap bar deadlift, but we're reducing the amount of repetitions. So we may do 5 repetitions. Now we can add more load and get more out of the exercise. The week before, what we were doing, we were building the body's tolerance level to that movement, its capacity, ability to understand and learn that movement. And then now we can get the most out of it in the next training block and really push the weight so we can build more strength out of it. And then the next training cycle, we may do the same thing, but again, now we're reducing the reps lower, and then we're increasing the weight every week. So you're always trying to push the exercise. You're doing the same movement from week to week. The only variable you're changing up is the amount of volume and the amount of repetitions that you're doing, so you can increase the load. That is enough variety for the body to actually get an adaptation and understand or get the most out of the training that you're trying to get out of it. So we refine. As we do that whole entire thing, we're refining our movement, right? So I don't know if you ever done an exercise for the first time for the first week, you're trying to learn how to actually like put your body in the right positions, right? So you're not going to get the most out of it. Week 2, you start to get comfortable with it and you're just like, okay, I'm feeling it a little bit better. I can put a little bit more weight on, but I'm just going to stay here. Finally, about week 3, you're just like, okay, I got this. Let's start pushing the weight a little bit more. Body gets used to it. And then week 4, you're really pushing it. Maybe you're going for, let's say, an 8 rep max. Then finally, you go into a next training cycle, and then your body's really primed and ready to go. And if you do the same movement and then less reps, you can really start to get some good benefit out of that movement pattern. So it's really good to understand that you're refining your movement and your ability to perform that exercise to get the training effect that we are looking for. That is the utmost thing. If you get nothing else out of this one, always remember when you're doing your strength and conditioning work, it is all about the training effect, the quality that you are looking to increase. Strength, muscle endurance, power development, and you can say resilience. I consider that strength, muscle endurance, and power your resilience in the first place, okay? So really think about those main characteristics and what you're trying to get from that movement. So strength in your knees, strength in your hips, your hip extension, strength in your shoulders, your pressing movement, strength in your pulling, your back muscles. So all muscle endurance in those areas, just really think about that. And that's when you start to really critically think about the movement selection that you decide to do inside of your training. And you'll understand that it's very few movements and it's trying to get the most out of it, more so than the nice, shiny object of this new, cool exercise that this influencer decided to put up on social media. So kind of hitting over this, like I said, the foundation stays the same. With us, we do bending movements. So bending, hinging, so that can look like a barbell RDL or a dumbbell RDL, right? Squat motions, so it could be goblet squats, it could be Zercher squats. I don't really perform too many back squats or back rack loaded movements with my fighters just because of the range of motion and the shoulders could get kind of banged up a little bit, as well as it can put a lot of stress on the lower back, comparatively speaking to something like a trap bar deadlift or a Zercher squat. So I just kind of avoid that as much as possible in their training, unless they're really experienced with the back squat and they just really love that movement and they just have to have it or else they're going to go crazy. But other than that, I really don't put back squats in their programming. So those are kind of like some of my main reasons for it. And again, like I said, it's all about the training effect that you're trying to get. If we want to reduce the amount of fatigue but still get a good training effect inside of the program, then choose movements that doesn't fatigue the body as much and you still get the same training effect, right? So the other thing is pushing. So upper body pushing. So we got horizontal pushing. We got vertical pushing movements. The next thing is pulling movements. So we got horizontal pulling movements, and then we got vertical pulling movements. And then the other thing is core control. So we might do isolated core work. This isn't necessary, but we do have some isolated core work in there if we want to really shore up that core ability. And then also single leg hip dominant movements, and then single leg knee dominant movements. So single leg hip dominant movements might look like dumbbell single leg RDLs, or it might look like stagger stance dumbbell RDLs. For single leg hip or knee dominant movements, it might look like dumbbell reverse lunges. It might look like split squats. So we just keep those main foundations the same, and we just just run through a variety of those variations as far as rep schemes, as far as sets that we do, and then also the implement that we may use on there, right? So you can change up the implement. So let's just say for a bending motion, instead of using a barbell for the RDLs, we might use dumbbells for the RDLs, or we might use a landmine for the RDL. And the reason why we change it up may be because we want to put less stress on the back. So we might do a landmine RDL instead of the barbell RDL. If we're looking to do more endurance work, we may use the dumbbells. If it's a less experienced fighter, we may start off with dumbbells. So we use variety in a strategic way instead of just variety for variety's sakes. And I already hit on, we rotate the movement variations over time. So, and it's, once again, like I said, it's not just to make it fun, but it's also to make it relevant to what we're trying to accomplish. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's intentional. Like we have intention behind why it's so simple. And it's trackable. So if we're doing these movements over time, you can get the most out of it. So if we do, like I said, that trap bar deadlift for 8 reps and then 5 reps and then 3 reps, we can definitely see that we increase the weight over time with that movement. And also you'll know that, okay, if at 8 reps I did 200 pounds, then I know I can definitely get at least 15 to 20 more pounds when I go down to 5 repetitions. So you have a good idea what weight you need to start with. So that cuts down on the thinking inside of the gym and your time. Again, time is very precious when you have all of these other training sessions you need to get to. So if you keep your movement simple and you keep a simple progression, that's going to allow you to be even more effective than you would by doing all these sexy exercises that you can't even keep track of and doing way too much variety inside of your training program. So just an example from some of my training that I did in the past. It was like the strongest and most explosive I've ever been was during a 12-week training block where I repeated the same core lifts every week. So I really enjoyed back squats and the Olympic lifts when I was training and doing deadlifts. So a lot of the barbell movements, but also mixed in with the Olympic lifts. And over this 12-week cycle, I was like, I really want to increase my squat, my deadlift. I also wanted to translate over into my Olympic lift, so I kept in some hang power cleans and some split jerks or whatnot. So over this 12-week cycle, I literally kept the exercises the same. I back squatted 2 days a week. I did bench press 2 days a week. I did deadlift and a deadlift variation 2 days throughout the week. And I was training 4 days a week and then just 1 day with some row intervals. But the key here is to know that I did the same movements over the course of 12 weeks, and I only changed the rep schemes. So let's just say that back squat I did 10 reps for 4 sets for the first week on Monday, and then I did another 8 repetitions on that Thursday. So my legs were fresh enough by that Thursday for me to get the most out of it. But all I did over the course of the time was just increase the weight, and I really pushed it. That's the key thing. If you're going to get the most out of these exercises, your last set, at least you have to really push that last set to fatigue. So I did a plus set on my last set whenever I was doing this training cycle. So let's just say I did 10 reps at, let's say 275, and then I did another 10 reps at 285, another 10 reps at 295, and then on my last set, I may have stayed at 295 if that felt challenging, and then pushed it to see how many reps I can get with 10 plus. So I may have gotten like 13 or 15 repetitions out of it until I couldn't do any more repetitions, basically. So that really pushed it and allowed my body to have to adapt the following week to that. And because I did a lower number of repetitions on the Thursday, it allowed me to increase the weight as well on that next day that I trained. But anyway, getting back to the main point. So I did that same back squat variation over the course of those 12 weeks, and my back squat increased 30 pounds from that. My deadlift improved, and movements that I didn't even train improved. This is what I mean by doing movements that actually just carry over. I did back squats throughout that training cycle, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to test my front squat as well. And my front squat went up from my best being, I think it was like 315 or 320, to me hitting like 345 to 350 for my front squat. I don't exactly remember, but yeah, I was shocked when I hit that weight. Also, my split jerk. If you're into Olympic lifts, you'll understand like split jerks. I went from 265, I think it was, or even I think it was like 255 or 265 to 285 for a split jerk. And I didn't even test it or train it throughout that whole entire training cycle. But here's the thing. The transfer over was I built a tremendous amount of leg strength. I built a lot of upper body endurance or strength capacity to be able to stabilize that weight overhead. And again, since I didn't train it, it is a skilled movement. I'm pretty sure if I did train that skill, I could have got way more out of that movement as well. Maybe even hit 300 if I would have trained it. But and then also a hang power clean. I did 245 for 2 reps there, and my best power clean at the time leading up to that was like 225 from the floor, which you should be able to lift more from the floor. So all that to say was a lot of it just translated over by doing the basic movement pattern of a squat, deadlift, bench press. I did rows as well, a lot of row variations, and I did some single leg movements as well. That was it. It did not vary. I did a lot. I did those basic movement patterns that we talked about earlier: bend, squat, push, pull, core, and your single leg variations. I did those. Very little volume. It may have been 3 exercises throughout the day. For the upper body day that I added in, it may have been maybe 4 exercises in there. And that was it. So it doesn't take much to actually improve your performance. And especially if you're more on the beginner side to intermediate side with resistance training, you don't really need much more than that. If you've been training for maybe 5+ years consistently in the gym, all the movement patterns, yeah, maybe you might need more variety, but that's rare when it comes to fighters. So I want you to ask yourself this question here. Am I doing this movement because it serves a purpose or because it looks good? The second question to ask yourself is, have I truly mastered the basics, or am I just collecting exercises? Progress doesn't come from sexy. It comes from showing up and doing the work that matters. As always, I appreciate you being here. And if you really got something from this and you believe somebody else can benefit, all I ask is that you share it with your teammates and coaches and anyone else you think may benefit from it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.